Six Flags Magic Mountain, located in Valencia, California. This is Clay with the Pennsylvania Roller Coaster Club, and today we're going to take a special peek at the roller coaster lineup at Six Flags Magic Mountain, take a look at all the coasters, and then we're going to rank them from worst to first. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. So, Valencia, California is just a couple hours to the northwest of Los Angeles. And, on a map, it looks like these two things are pretty close together. But California traffic, it's just built differently. So, you're talking 2 to 3 hour drive from the San Diego area to Six Flags Magic Mountain, and probably about 2 hours from the Los Angeles area. But geographically, it really is built in a perfect location. The rolling hills of Valencia is a perfect scenery, and it's a perfect backdrop for an amusement park. And it's no wonder since 1971, Magic Mountain has been the dominant driving force in California as far as thrill parks for amusement and theme parks. So, I had an opportunity to go with Kristen at the beginning of 2024 in January, and it was my hopes that we would get an opportunity to ride everything there. But one of my most anticipated credits, being X2, just so happened to close for annual maintenance, literally the day that we had arrived. So, although I was incredibly disappointed, I'm gonna go back, of course. But the biggest piece of news right now is the new roller coaster that is starting to have work being done, and I'm gonna make my prediction right now. It's gonna be an Intamin motorbike coaster. Essentially, Six Flags Magic Mountain, I plan on them getting pretty much the identical ride model. Maybe not the same layout, but the same ride model as Six Flags New England. So let's talk about what is here, though. We're going to start off at number 20 with Magic Flyer. Now, this Bradley and Kay, it had opened up with the park in 1971. It's one of the original staples, along with the Mine Train from Arrow. So definitely a place in the lineup, but a lot of family coasters here and kids coasters. You'll see that trend moving on. Next up at number 19 is going to be Speedy Gonzales Hot Rod Racers. And this Speedy Gonzales Hot Rod Racers, it was listed as a family coaster, so I'll be honest, I expected a little bit more. I still would quantify this as a kids coaster. So not really the demographic that we're targeting here. But moving on. Number 18, Canyon Blaster. Now, Canyon Blaster, also a kids coaster, quantified as a family coaster, and I don't know if I would call it that. This is going to be more akin to like a Cosmos Curves type ride. These E&F Milers are, they're actually pretty good rides. Kids coaster, family coaster, right, wrong, or indifferent, doesn't really matter. Canyon Blaster is actually pretty good, and most of the E&F Milers are. But moving on to number 17 is going to be Road Runner Express. Now, Road Runner Express was put in 2011, and it is a true Vekoma Junior coaster. So definitely a little bit bigger on the layout, almost 700 feet of track here for this Junior Vekoma. So not exactly the most thrilling ride in the world, especially considering some of the adult thrill rides that are already contained within this park. But if you were trying to, bring along junior thrill seekers, rides like this are critical to any park and to any lineup. So, Six Flags Magic Mountain, well done. You definitely give an abundance of smaller roller coasters for junior riders, and ultimately, that's not just appealing to a couple straggler kids, but to families in general that want to bring their kids to the park. But moving on to number 16, the other ride that I talked about from 1971 that had opened with the park, that is, of course, Gold Rusher, an Aero Development mine train. And, this coaster does a phenomenal job, as many mine trains do, of being able to take full advantage of the topography and the lay of the land. So, Gold Rusher, maybe not the most thrilling ride in the park, and probably not the smoothest ride in the park either, but it definitely serves its purpose as really the first big true family coaster. Moving on to number 15, Superman, Escape from Krypton. Now, this could potentially be a little bit controversial to have Superman Escape from Krypton this low, but I gotta tell you, I was not that impressed. I mean, maybe had I ridden this when it had originally come out, I'm sure that the novelty was really impressive at the time. However, that's really all it is now, is just a novelty and a little piece of history, but not much else. Moving on to number 14, Riddler's Revenge. Now, if you are a fan of the channel and you've watched previous videos, you might be aware of my disdain towards B&M stand-up roller coasters. Well, with the caveat of Pipeline the Surf Coaster at SeaWorld Orlando. That new technology is awesome and changes the ride experience completely. However, the old school models, not very good. These can be quite painful and uncomfortable, and just not a big fan. Moving on to number 13, the new Revolution. And I did not have high hopes or expectations for this. I am a fan of old Schwarzkopf roller coasters, actually quite a big fan of old Schwarzkopf roller coasters, but I wasn't necessarily expecting this to be good. I just figured it would be, average at best. But the historical value by itself makes this ride worth riding. And then when you actually get an opportunity to get on it and you realize how charming the layout is through the woods and up on the mountainside, it's actually pretty awesome. But moving on, number 12, Scream, or as I like to call it, Parking Lot Medusa. So, Parking Lot Medusa, painted in Florida Gator colors, is not that different from Medusa. But I do have to knock it and take some points just for the, the parking lot nature of the ride. They really didn't do anything to this ride to help it along with, with any type of theming or even really near miss moments. I mean, just not much done with it, but it's still okay. Moving on. Number 11, Batman the Ride. Now, again, if you have watched this channel previously, and if you've watched any of the roller coaster rankings for other parks, I am an adamant critic of the Batman the Ride in the Six Flags lineups. So I always say that if your Batman the Ride is better than, say, like number 5 or 6 in the park, then you don't have a very strong roller coaster lineup. But transversely, here at Magic Mountain, it's 11th. That is a testament to how strong this park's roller coaster lineup truly is. Moving on, number 10, Wonder Woman, Flight of Courage. Now, I do understand that this could be controversial. However, if you have watched previous videos, I talk pretty ad nauseum about my displeasure and disdain towards the seating and the restraint system for these RMC Raptors. As a 6'4", 225-pound man, my legs and my hips and pelvis don't allow myself to contort to fit into these trains comfortably. The last time that I did, I thought I was going to need a hip replacement forthwith. So, yeah, not exactly the best. However, I will tell you, Kristen rode it, and she said it was very good. Not much better than Jersey Devil Coaster. But moving on. Number 9, Ninja. This is one of the more pleasant surprises of Magic Mountain to me. Now, being from Pittsburgh and having Kennywood as a home park, obviously I have spent time over the last 20 years of my life at Cedar Point. So the majority of my experience with these suspended aero coasters is either going to be Iron Dragon at Cedar Point, which ostensibly is awful, comparatively speaking to the others, and then the Bat at Kings Island. And out of the three of them, even though the Bat is great, I think Ninja is the best. But moving on. Number 8, Viper. Now, this probably was the biggest surprise of Magic Mountain. I gotta give the nod to Viper. I expected this to be pretty terrible, to be perfectly honest and transparent. After hearing, a lot of horror stories of other old parks having old arrows, I just kind of assumed that this was going to be one and the same. But boy, I was wrong. This ride is awesome. Moving on. Number 7, Apocalypse. Now, Apocalypse is one of those GCIs that just gets absolutely no credit. It never gets talked about, and a lot of the reason is because of the park that it calls as its home. When you have a roller coaster lineup this strong, an above average coaster may not stand out like it would at another park with a significantly weaker lineup. I'll even go as far as to say that Apocalypse would probably be a top 1, 2, or 3 ride at most parks in the country. I do think that even putting it at number 7 is probably not giving it its fair shake and due. Awesome ride. Number 6, Full Throttle. Now, S&S came in, and this ride, in full transparency, would rank significantly higher on this list had Premier Rides actually built a whole ride. And what do I mean by that? Well, it really gets you going, and you are really into it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you shoot over this hill, and you are waiting for amazing airtime, and then you just kind of head down to the brakes. Bummer. Still great. Moving on. Number 5, Goliath. And, if Viper was the biggest surprise, I would probably say that Goliath was my second biggest surprise. Now, I knew that I would like it because, it's a hypercoaster and it goes really fast. But not having the privilege to experience a Giovanola hypercoaster leading up to this point, I really did not know what to expect, really at all. But here's what I can report back. Number 1, the first drop, it really doesn't have a great angle of descent, so it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but boy, it does get you going fast. That mid-course brake run, it does kind of kill the ride, but I think it's acceptable. And man, I love the trains and restraints. Goliath, way better than most people say. Number 4, Tatsu. Now, as far as flying coasters go, for the US, I have pretty much been on them all. However, Tatsu stands up above the rest. Number 1, I'll clear out the elephant in the room. I do not believe that it is more intense with its pretzel roll, or pretzel loop, than Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. I do believe that Manta at SeaWorld Orlando is more intense and pulls more force in that particular element. However, I will say that is pretty much the only place where I would give Manta the nod. Tatsu's scenery and its layout, second to none. Amazing ride. Number 3, West Coast Racers. We have another Premier Rides product. Now, ultimately, I am not the biggest fan of these trains. I have never been a very big fan of these trains. I find them to be uncomfortable on the legs, and you really don't have much room to be able to move around and enjoy and experience the elements. However, after hearing everyone complain about the comfort collars on this in particular ride, I was nervous. And the park, they don't do much to help, quench your fears, if you will, because, well, at any drop of rain or even a discussion of humidity for that matter, West Coast Racers shuts down and it will not run. So if there is a chance of rain in the forecast, I wouldn't have too high of expectations that you're going to grab the West Coast Racers credit. So keep an eye on the weather forecast for Magic Mountain days. Other than that, it is still pretty darn good. I just, wish that it was better. Number 2. We went ahead and we put X2 up at the second spot. And yeah, I didn't get an opportunity to ride it. I did get an opportunity to get up close and personal with it, and with the trains and the station and what have you. And I can tell you, it looks incredible. And having ridden rides with similar ride vehicles, maybe not ones that articulate and spin, I do enjoy that kind of wing over feel off to the side of the track. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of like an out-of-control 4D free spin with an actual layout. And for that, I mean, how could you not love it? But even if I did ride it, I don't think it could be number 1. And that's because Twisted Colossus is in this park. Now, again, referencing Kennywood, being home to one of the only remaining and functional true Mobius Loop racing roller coasters in the world, knowing that Cyclone maintained its Mobius aspect, man, that is so cool. And for that reason alone, it's one of the most interesting RMCs I've ever been on, and probably in the top 10 or 15 of most interesting roller coasters, period, that I've been on. We also were lucky enough to get a couple of the coveted racing rides between sides, which from what we understood is pretty rare nowadays. However, we did get quite a few. I would probably say 2 handful over our 2 or 3 days in the park. But let me know below, guys. What do you think? Is Twisted Colossus the best in the park? Or when I finally ride X2, am I going to end up putting that up? Most importantly for us, guys, if you enjoy content like this, please, consider subscribing to the channel. We are trying to make a push towards 1,000 subscribers. And any help and support that you can offer, it would go a long way and mean quite a deal to us. But again, in the comments, guys, please let me know below. Do you agree with my rankings? How do you, piece them together? Do you think that X2 is the best in the park? Or are you one of the full throttle fanboys that thinks that it is the best ride in the park, even without a better second half? Let me know. And we will go from there. But I think that's going to do it for me today. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, we'll see you out there.